Hello, dear students. I am Dr. Govind Sarswat, and in this lecture, we will talk about the struggle of Santiago with the Merlin on its third day. On the third day, a small bird hovers around the old man's small boat. The old man suspects that it is the warbler's first trip, and that he knows nothing of the hawk that will meet the warbler as it nears land. Knowing that the warbler cannot understand him, the old man tells the bird to stay and rest up before heading towards shore. Just then the Merlin surges, nearly pulling Santiago overboard, and the bird departs. Santiago notices that his hand is bleeding from where the line has cut it. So, on the beginning of the third day of his struggle with the Merlin, Santiago is all alone sitting, waiting for the big fish to come on the surface, and at the same time, a small bird uh, known as the warbler that sits on the line of this Santiago's uh, attempt in order to catch the marlin, and he starts talking with that bird since he's alone and he's tired and he was sitting silently waiting. So it came to his mind to talk to the bird and to relieve somewhat of his own tension. And all of a sudden, when he was busy talking with the bird, the marlin gave a pull to the line that caused Santiago to fall fall into the sea. But he manages to be on the board, but Santiago notices that his hand is bleeding because of the jerk that was given by that big marlin. Now, aware that he will need to keep his strength, the old man makes himself eat the tuna that he caught the day before, which he had expected to use as bait. While he cuts and eats the fish with his right hand, his already cut left hand cramps and tightens into a claw under the strain of taking all the fish resistance. Santiago is angered and frustrated by the weakness of his own body, but the tuna he hopes will reinvigorate the hand. As he eats, he feels a brotherly desire to feed the marlin too. Now he is aware that he is old and he needs strength in order to catch that big fish. He eats a fish which he has caught a day before, um, and then he feels that his left hand, in which there is a the cut is he's bleeding on his left hand, and then he feels a cramp in that hand. So Santiago is aware that his struggle with the fish will demand all his strength. So he becomes angry also, and he gets frustrated also because he feels that he's weak, he's old, but he hopes that he will get enough strength in order to give his best. While waiting for the cramp in his hand to ease, Santiago looks across the vast waters and thinks himself to be completely alone. A flight of ducks passes overhead, and he realizes that it is impossible for a man to be alone on the sea. The slant of the fishing line changes, indicating to the old fisherman that the fish is approaching the surface. He's Santiago is sitting alone. He is watching across the vast waters, and he feels that it is very tormenting when one feels alone on the sea. Then he watches uh, some ducks also, and Then he feels that the fish is approaching the surface. Suddenly, the fish leaps magnificently into the air, and Santiago sees that it is bigger than any he has ever witnessed. So, when the fish it jumps into the air from the sea, for the first time, Santiago witnesses that the marlin is bigger than he has anticipated. It is 2 feet longer than the skip itself. जो उसकी बोट थी उससे भी 2 फुट लंबी वो फिश थी. Santiago declares it great and promises never to let the fish learn its own strength. The line races out until the fish slows to its earlier pace. By noon, the old man's hand is uncramped, and though he claims he is not religious, he he offers his prayer, and then he takes the oath to make a pilgrimage to the Virgin of Cobre. In case his struggle with the Merlin should continue for another night, Santiago baits another line in hope of catching another meal. So you can imagine the struggle of Santiago on the day three. His hand is injured. He is tired. He is feeling lonely. He feels lonely there, and the Merlin is bigger than his expectation, and the struggle is endless. So he has to retain all his strength in order to prove his uh, skill, and then uh, he baits another line so that he can catch another fish for the next day. On the next day, Santiago's struggle with the Merlin uh, wears on. The old man alternately questions and justifies seeking the death of such a noble opponent. As dusk approaches, Santiago's thoughts turn to baseball. The great DiMaggio thinks the old man plays brilliantly despite the pain of a bone spur in his heel. So Santiago again thinks of his hero DiMaggio, and why does he do so? Because he gives himself the solace, consolation that even his hero, DiMaggio, he played brilliantly, even though he had pain of a bone spur. Santiago is not actually sure what bone spur is, but he is sure he would not be able to bear the pain of one himself. He wonders if DiMaggio would stay with the Merlin. To boost his confidence, the old man recalls the great all night arm wrestling match he won as a young man, having beaten his opponent in Cuba, a small town in Cuba. Santiago earned the title El Champion, means the champion. Santiago reminds that he was a wrestler and then he won a match also, and when he defeated his opponent he was given the title the champion. So everything what he has achieved in his life, and everything that can give him the hope, the strength, Santiago is thinking only of that. So we need to learn something from Santiago here. Although the struggle may take long time, you may be weak, but even then, you must be positive in his thought. In your thought, you must be strong in your willpower, and should give your 100% in order to prove your worth. Then he catches a dolphin also so that he can eat its flesh. Then Santiago considers the stars to be his friends as the night approaches. As he does the great Merlin, he considers himself lucky that his lot in life doesn't involve hunting anything so great as the stars or the moon. Again, he feels sorry for the Merlin. Though he is as determined to as ever to kill it, the fish will feed many people, Santiago decides, though they are not worthy of the creature's great destiny. By starlight, still bracing and handling the line, Santiago considers rigging the oars so that the fish will have to pull harder and eventually tire itself out. He fears this strategy would ultimately result in the loss of the fish. He decides to rest, which really just means putting down his hands and letting the line go across his back instead of using his own strength to resist his opponent. So, as the night approaches, Santiago is again thinking of his strategy in order to catch the fish. He is tired and he decides to uh, uh, let the line loose and instead of holding the line in his hand, he he puts it down in such a manner so that the line can get across his back. And this is the end of day 3 of his struggle. And while while on the verge of sleeping, Santiago uh, thinks uh, of the lions on the beach in Africa. So this all these things which Santiago is doing here is to give him the support which he requires at this stage. There is no one to motivate him. So he has to self motivate. खुद को ही मोटिवेट उसको करना पड़ेगा. That is why he is thinking of DiMaggio. He is thinking of his wrestling match with that opponent. He is thinking of the lions on the beach of Africa. So all these things are all these things have that positive energy which Santiago requires at this time, and he is hopeful that he will win this battle against this much big marlin. Although it is although the fish marlin is is so great in its size that it is 2 feet longer than his own boat. And Santiago is determined even then to kill this big fish. He has sympathy with the marlin, but even then, since this marlin is his opponent, he has to kill it. So, this is all about the short summary on the day 3. What can we learn from Santiago? I have already told you. And Hemingway unites the old man with Merlin through Santiago's frequent expression of his feelings of kinship. So everything that has that is happening here on the sea when Santiago is alone, that gives us the clue that we may also be alone in our struggle. हम भी कई बार अपने स्ट्रगल में अकेले हो सकते हैं, कोई नहीं होगा. सो मोटिवेट करना होगा खुद को ही. और समस्या चाहे कितनी ही बड़ी क्यों ना हो, विल पावर को स्ट्रॉन्ग रखना होगा, होप रखनी होगी, वेट करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन कोशिश करनी जारी रहनी चाहिए. कोशिश आप जो कर रहे हैं उसे बंद नहीं करना है. बिकॉज if you quit in between, you are a loser. And if you put or if you give your 100% and the result, if it is not as you expect, but even then you feel that you did your best, you gave your best, and you will feel a kind of satisfaction in your mind and in your heart. Thank you for listening me carefully. In the next lecture, we will discuss what happens on the day 4 of his struggle with Marlin.